The Baltimore Ravens need Lamar Jackson to come back with a vengeance and save their season. I think he could pull it off. We'll talk about it today on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is absolutely the truth. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of The Barbershop here on Locked On NFL, and it is Thursday. That means I am joined. Riding shotgun with me is my homie, Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers. We're going to navigate around the league and use the clips from the local experts to let you know exactly what is going on with your team. Remember, we are free to subscribe to wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you tap in and don't miss an episode, whether you watch or listen. An episode like the one today, that is the Crossover Thursday edition, although it's not a crossover. Here it is around our network. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 bet, because Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. You can also swing over to Amazon Music and check us out ad-free. That's right, over on Amazon Music. Make sure you tap into that. Here's what Chris and I are going to do. At the end of the show, we're going to preview tonight's game between the Chargers and the Minnesota Vikings. Somebody's season is going to be done with, in my opinion. I got a feeling it's going to be Team Purple. We'll go right in the middle. We'll talk about the Bears and take a little bit of a look at the NFC North and what's going on. Once again, that's a very, very competitive division. But we're going to start talking about a team in the division that Chris covers, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. Chris, they're behind the eight ball, man, and they're that way. And I ain't going to say this too loud because this might be some little shrapnel, but they ain't playing no defense in Baltimore. And it's a couple of teams not playing no defense that we're used to seeing playing defense this time of year.
Yeah, it's been really rough for the Ravens. And listen, I think that they're still not anywhere. I don't think they're out of it at all. I think that this team can rebound. I do think that Lamar Jackson, once he's back and healthy and raring to go, this offense will click into a high gear pretty quickly. But the defense is a big concern, because this defense was supposed to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. Much like, as you're insinuating, the Steelers were supposed to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. Neither have gotten off to a hot start. But at least the Ravens can say they've been destroyed by injuries. Madubuike, their key defensive tackles, out for the season. Travis Jones has missed games. Marlon Humphrey's missed games. Kyle Hamilton's missed games. Roquan Smith has missed games. Like, at every level of their defense, they've been missing a key player for a significant amount of time, and then you lose your superstar quarterback. That's just not a way that you're going to be able to sustain winning. But at the same time, sometimes you got to. The Steelers have gone through years where they've been missing T.J. Watt, and they've been missing Cam Hayward, and they've been missing Minka Fitzpatrick. They were missing, they went through a year with missing Ben Roethlisberger for an entire year, and they still found a way to stay afloat for most of the season. That's what the Ravens got to start doing, and they got a Bears matchup this week that is not going to be easy. I think the Bears are showing a bit of a sense of being, a little bit more competitive. They're making a lot of explosive plays happen. And I think this is going to be an interesting matchup for them this week, a wake-up call, if you will, because the Bears are going to come in, are going to come into Baltimore, and they're going to be raring to go. They're going to be setting up to say, like, okay, we're going to be pushing for that top of the NFC North that's really competitive right now. And if the Ravens defense isn't recovering, if it's not getting better coming off of its bye, this could turn into a shootout. And if I'm the Ravens, I don't really want to have a shootout. I want to have a nice, confident win to kind of reset things coming out of the bye.
Yeah, it sounds like you're describing the Ravens might be pushing themselves into a situation where they got to play like the Bengals, where they just got to outscore everybody, and that's really not what they customarily do. Here's my man, KO, Kevin Oestreicher with Locked On Ravens.
Can it really get any worse than it already has been so far? Like, if you try something out, and I'm not even talking offensive line. I mean, I am, but I'm just talking in general. If it's other positions too, like positions that are struggling, if you try something out and it doesn't work, is that any worse than what we've seen? But if it does work, hey, you found something. It's kind of like what we saw last year with the defense, where it was just awful every single week. And then, they finally said, all right, we're going to try to move guys around. Or Darius comes in, Kyle, we're changing your roll up. Like it's a last gasp effort. And it worked. That's what they have to do now. You have to try it. And if it fails, it fails. And your season's probably over. It might already be over. I don't know. But you at least have to try something. Try something different. See if it works.
I kind of agree with Kevin, but then I kind of think, no, I kind of agree with Chris. They need to get Lamar back and just be the identity that they want to be, because they actually can outscore people. But the key is they can't make mistakes and give up possessions because the defense can't stop anybody. Somebody else that is playing a little bit differently because they have to right now because their defense is god awful is the Dallas Cowboys. And they might have found something. Once again, they might have found out that playing like the old Joe Burrow Cincinnati Bengals might do them some good. And I'm not sending drive-bys to the Bengals, but what I'm saying is it's proven that if you have a great offense and a suspect defense, you can find your way to making a run towards the playoffs. I don't know if you can win it, but you can find your way. Here are the guys from Locked On Cowboys talking about their deadly passing attack.
I mean, look, I think what you saw from Pickens and Lamb today is why you feel like you really do have a chance, and even with the record on the low end of kind of in the hunt playoff teams, right? You just look at what you're able to accomplish when both of those guys are in the lineup, and then you add in obviously a very effective run game, and then I think Ferguson has just become an incredible weapon in the red zone, just with all the attention that's being drawn on the outside. He was 7 for 7 for only 29 yards, but that's because he also caught 2 very short touchdowns and scored. So, yeah, I just think that the passing attack is just absolutely shredding teams, and it doesn't really matter the down and distance. It feels like the Cowboys can convert even when they get behind the.
Chris, they make you keep your foot on the gas, don't they? Don't get no two touchdown lead trying to run the clock out on Dallas. They make you keep going.
It's the best defense is a great offense, right? That's the philosophy they're going at. And listen, there's merit behind it, because when you score at that higher rate, you then put the pressure on the other offense to score at that higher rate. And sometimes when they're trying to be that aggressive, if they're not as good as you at being that aggressive, they can make more mistakes. And your defense that's not as solid as far as getting stops down to down can take advantage of a bad pass or a drop pass or a fumble. And I think that's what you have to do when you're that kind of an offensive team. But make no mistake, I do think that the Cowboys are going to need more balance at some point this season with their defense. I get scoring, and it's fun to watch. And listen, Pickens, and I covered that guy for 3 years. He's a fantastic talent. And him and CeeDee Lamb, I knew were going to be a fantastic pair with Dak Prescott, and they were going to get used. But eventually, they're going to run to those into those more balanced teams that I think are going to give them a harder time, and they already have, really. I mean, they lost to the Eagles in the opener. They got destroyed by the Bears. They did tie with the Packers. I thought that was impressive. But you look at some of their wins this year. They barely edged out the Giants by 3. They beat a Jets team that everyone's beating right now. And they did destroy a Commanders team, and that was encouraging. But that Commanders team also lost Jaden Daniels, and he got hurt. I'll be interested to see how do they do down this next stretch. This Broncos team, I think they should beat, because the Broncos look very shaky against the Giants. I think the Cardinals are kind of out of it. The Raiders, that'll be a stretch where if they handle those games, they're going to put themselves to say, hey, we are for real. I think they'd be 6-3-1 at that point if they won those 3 games. But then you get your gauntlet, because then you're going to be playing the Eagles, playing the Chiefs, playing the Lions in 3 straight games. If they get through, if they win their next 3 games and then they get through that stretch 2-1, then I'll be like, okay, no, they're okay. The Cowboys can be real. But make no mistake, the curse of the NFC East is real. No team has won the NFC East in back-to-back seasons since 2003, which means I had somebody else winning it, not being the Eagles. It was the Commanders for me for a while, but with the injuries to Jaden Daniels, maybe it can be the Cowboys that catch up, because the Eagles don't look too elite themselves right now. But I think they still have, this team still has a lot to prove. If they beat Denver, they'll be on the first step of proving it the rest of the way.
No doubt. And trust me, I bring that stat about the NFC East up often when you're not here on Locked On NFL here in the barbershop. I always give you credit for it. I'm just let you know, since I talk about you, we ain't here sometimes. I give you credit for it, CC. We're going to take a look at that NFC North, since we talked about the AFC North. The NFC North still competitive this year. It ain't all scheduled. It ain't all about the fact that they were beating up on a bunch of bad teams. These teams are actually pretty good. We'll discuss them and more here in just a second on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored, as I said at the top of the show, by Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, Being right can actually get you paid, man. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Prize Picks is such fun. It's a simple way to add more excitement to just watching the games, right? You pick more or less on player projections, just like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, not this year so much, and you're in the game. I tell you what, I'm going to always go with the team that has the alpha wide receiver and say that he's going to go over Jamar Chase, whoever it is, Justin Jefferson tonight. Make sure you tap in and say more on their player projections. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups as you play your first $5 lineup. That code is Locked On NFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. And today's show is also sponsored to you by our friends over at Game Time. You're trying to go to the game. If you don't have a ticket, it ain't too late. Even if it's already kicked off, it's still not too late because Game Time is where you need to be. Let's be honest, man. Getting tickets can be a hassle sometimes between queues, long login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's all frustrating. You ain't got to worry about none of that with Game Time. The app gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Chris Carter here with us from Locked On Steelers, running it down on Locked On NFL, like we always do here in the barbershop. Somebody started a song like that, like we always do. I thought I was going to sound like one of them rappers just a second ago, Chris. I almost lost where I was for a minute. The Bears, though, have lost where they used to be, and that is at the bottom. They are no longer in football purgatory, and they haven't really beaten a whole bunch of top-tier teams. You just mentioned they beat the Cowboys, but they used to be one of those teams that used to get beat by everybody, and now they've kind of turned the corner, and you're starting to see Caleb Williams play well, and Rome Odunze, and Luther Burden, all guys that are making contributions for the first time this year for their new head coach, Ben Johnson. Let me talk to and listen to my man Lauren Cox and the Bear Squad Show here on Locked On NFL.
The Chicago Bears get the victory 26-14 over the New Orleans Saints in a win that feels a lot like last week in a lot of ways. Your defense, again, 4 turnovers forced in this game. Kevin Byard, a big interception. Edmonds has a nice play again, like we saw earlier in the season. The defense just continues to make plays. 15 turnovers forced in their last 4 games, but the running game was excellent. Kyle Monungai and DeAndre Swift rushed for a combined 205 yards and 2 touchdowns, and they needed it because the passing game wasn't very good. Caleb Williams missing throws, a lot of pressure, trying to make plays out of nothing when he should just be running the ball. But the run game and the defense, they look and feel very different coming out of the bye week as the Bears, again, win their 4th straight victory and get ready now to take on Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens.
People wonder where Ben Johnson will get his double dose of running backs. Well, he found them, and they're running the ball in Chicago, and that they are the monsters of the Midway, and they're doing their thing and starting to look like the Bears that the Chicago fans hope they see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how things play forward. Even with Caleb Williams not playing at his best, they've scored 25 or more points in 4 straight games, and I think that's an encouraging sign. It's now they average 25.3 points per game. They're a top 10 scoring offense right now, and I think they deserve credit for that. And you're right though; they haven't beaten anyone. Like, they beat the Cowboys pretty soundly. I think that's their best win right now. They barely edged out a bad Raiders team. They barely edged out the Commanders, and they were able to beat the Saints soundly last week. But now's their chance to beat a Ravens team and beat down on a Ravens team that's like we were talking about, who's been down in the dumps. But even if the Ravens are down in the dumps, if Lamar Jackson comes back this week and you beat Lamar Jackson, you're going to put that feather in your cap either way. You're going to be like, no, we just beat a 2-time MVP quarterback, a guy who's one of the baddest men in the NFL. And you can really put yourself on a trajectory, because remember, they started this season 0-2. They got edged out by the Vikings and they got destroyed by the Lions, and everyone's thinking, oh, nothing's really changed in Chicago. Everything's really rough. But now you have a chance to set that tone. I think that that you look at the Caleb Williams, what they're trying to do with Ben Johnson is. I think there's some really good potential for this team, but you gotta keep it going. Even if you lose to the Ravens, you get next 2 games against the Bengals and Giants. You could put yourself at a chance to be 6-3 going up against Pittsburgh in late November. That'll be a thing here. But I just look at their gauntlet coming out. I was talking about the gauntlet earlier for other teams, but you got after the Steelers, you're in Philadelphia. You play the Packers twice in 3 weeks. Right after that, then you are at the Niners. Then you're facing the Lions. The Bears have a lot to prove this year, and you need to create some space because it's not just about the Bears themselves. It's also about the division they're in right now, right? Because as it stands right now, they're 4-2, and Bears fans probably think this is great. We're 4-2, but you're 0-2 in the division, and you're in a division where the Packers are leading the way at 4-1-1. The Lions are 5-2. There's going to be at least 2 teams to make the playoffs in this division. If there's 2 teams to make the playoffs, it means from this division, that means you're running out of space to actually make the playoffs. And so, and meanwhile, the rest of the NFC is pretty competitive as well. So if I'm the Bears, I need to build up as much of a lead as I can before I get to that gauntlet later in the season, which is why this week is just increasingly important for them to find a way to win.
You wouldn't know it. You'd think that Detroit was winning the division. You did mention the record, so if people were paying attention, they heard that Green Bay is 4-1-1, but it doesn't feel like it. It just feels like the Packers, for some reason, are underachieving because they got Michael Parsons early, and then they had the chance to go into Dallas and win a game, and then they lost to Cleveland, which is something you're not supposed to do. Peter Bukowski is going to sit here and tell you all about what's going on with Green Bay right now.
The Green Bay Packers are the number 1 seed in the NFC, despite the issues, a loss in Cleveland, a tie in Dallas. They're at the top of the standings in the NFC. And as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers showed on Monday night, you are not always what your record says you are. The Green Bay Packers, though, are the best team in the NFC. And I understand people want to say Detroit, they played better the last month, but we don't just get to pick and choose right now. I understand you want to throw out week 1. Week 1 has produced wonky results plenty of times. Nothing fluky about what happened in week 1 to the Packers when they played the Detroit Lions. They got up for that game. They played their best football. And you have to show that. You have to put that on tape. That game remains the single most impressive game an NFC team has played this season. And the Packers then follow it up by beating the Commanders in impressive fashion, despite playing like a B+ kind of game. And I know that it doesn't look as good in retrospect because the Commanders have fallen apart a little bit. That's been injuries. There's a lot of reasons for it. But that was a big game that the Packers played down some key players. They lose Jaden Reed on the first drive of that game. Zach Tom doesn't play in that game. You're shuffling offensive linemen. Remember, Christian Watson's not back. It's interesting that for all of the talk about the injuries that the Buccaneers have, it's just forgotten that the Packers have also shuffled through a slew of offensive lines that they have.
All right, so Peter has just told us that Green Bay is the best team. The record indicates that they are. They're a little bit. It's either us having heightened expectations, or when you use the word best, you want to see a team play very clean, and they don't seem to play very clean. The Eagles don't play very clean, but the difference between the Eagles and the Chiefs and teams that don't play very clean that have titles is, well, they have titles, and you don't as of late. What do you feel about the Packers?
I mean, look, the Packers have a lot of potential. They were my pick to win the NFC. So, like, I'm right with Peter. I think that they have the talent to be that team. But like you said, they got to prove it. And I think that they early on, like you said, like you brought up, they smoked the Lions, they smoked the Commanders. And in all but one game this year, they've scored 27 points. And that one game was in Cleveland, where I think a lot of people understand Cleveland is a tough place to play that defense. At one point, they were the number 1 defense in the NFL. The Steelers beat up on them a little bit, so it took that off of them. But I think that's not an easy place to play. And you tied the Cowboys in a 40-40 shootout. But if you're the Packers, you have the potential to have a great defense with Michael Parsons and with the other talent that you have there, with the pass rushers that you have. You have Xavier McKinney on the back end at safety. You have these opportunities, and I think that's where the Packers need to start hitting on them. And I think you look at the last 2 games, they beat a Jake Browning-led Bengals team, a hurt-up Cardinals team, games that you expect this team to win. But now, you should expect this team to go into Pittsburgh and beat an old Aaron Rodgers and a defense that hasn't been playing well. But there's a path for the Packers to kind of control the NFC right now, because if you beat the Steelers, you get the Panthers. Bryce Young's is hurt right now. Then you get the Eagles. That'll be a prime matchup for them. I believe it's a Sunday night matchup, or no, it's a Monday night matchup for them. You get the Giants, then you get the Vikings, then you get your rematch in Detroit. But if you get through that with maybe one more loss in that stretch of next 5 games, then you're going to be talking like, oh yeah, we are the best team in the NFC, and then it'll be real. But they have to be consistent, because one thing that happens to every team is that you run into your bumps in the road, and I think the best teams, when they hit their adversity, because every team hits adversity at some point, how do you bounce back from it? And the Steelers are currently trying to deal with that right now. They're trying to prove that they're one of the good teams in the AFC. They're 4-2, but they just lost to a Bengals team with Joe Flacco, and they got ripped apart. And now they're facing a team with Jordan Love that loves to air the ball out and loves to move the rock. This is going to be an interesting battle on Sunday night between these two teams. But the Packers, I think that Peter's right, that they right now they're the best in the NFC. But this is an NFC that is loaded with teams that think that they're the best, because here's the thing. It'd be one thing. It's not like they're 10-0 and everyone else is 7-3 or 6-4. They're 4-1-1. And then there are 6 teams that are 5-2 in the NFC. Everyone is right on their heels. This is a heck of a race right now in the NFC. Again, Niners, Eagles, Buccaneers, Lions, Seahawks, Rams, all those teams are 5-2. And by the way, the Bears are 4-2. So 2 teams in their own division are literally nipping at their heels right now. The Packers don't have time to stand up and say, yeah, we're the best. They got to kick it into high gear and keep winning. And they got to do it this week in Pittsburgh. Otherwise, they won't be in first place next week.
You just mentioned all of those teams like a log jam in the NFC. That means the Minnesota Vikings have to win this Thursday night game, or they're going to be out of it. And I'm going to have an interesting theory as to their quarterback selection for tonight's game. We'll discuss that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Mazda. That's right. Mazda is our sponsor for today's third segment here. Man, look. Mazda crafts cars for those that do more than simply move, right? Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Plus picks and awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes often sweat all the details in their buildup, right? So Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but routine everyday drives, from smooth handling to intuitive controls with all-wheel drive standard. In every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. That is Mazda. Move and be moved. All right, kicking into high gear. We're going to do a real quick preview of tonight's game. Interesting quarterback choice. I think J.J. McCarthy's healthy, but I also think Kevin O'Connell ain't crazy enough to put a young J.J. McCarthy out there with a dude like Jim Harbaugh on the other sideline that knows all of his quirks. He knows everything about him. He knows what makes him tick and probably things that he does not want to do. Here's my man, Luke Braun, to talk about the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings.
Right. I don't even want to call it a quarterback controversy. I don't think the Vikings are that excited about Wentz. It seems like Kevin O'Connell was actually pretty frustrated with Wentz after this game, and rightly so. He should be. But considering what's happening on the rest of the depth chart, I have no idea if they actually know who they like at quarterback at all, because they've been unbelievably indecisive about so many other spots on the line.
Yeah, they made a decision to play Wentz tonight. My theory is that this ain't the game you want to bring that kid back, not with Khalil Mack coming back and then the coach just knowing everything about him.
Yeah, plus it's a short week on the road. You want to give J.J. McCarthy a nice landing strip to get his wheels on the ground and keep it moving. And you're facing a talented Chargers defense, not just Khalil Mack, but Derwin James is going to be out there flying around. Diane Henley's a very good linebacker. Let Carson Wentz, the veteran, handle this short week. And then next week you have the natural long week. You have Thursday Night Football, which means you're going to have the weekend to kind of recover, get everything straight, and then you can practice early on Monday instead of getting your first day on Wednesday, and then you could kind of roll into the week and give JJ McCarthy more time to kind of get reacclimated. But I kind of agree with this decision. Like, if he hasn't played yet for a minute, keep your vet in there. Let your offense try to work the way that it has been working. Let your defense get after Justin Herbert, whose offensive line has been hurt up this year. Joe Alt's supposed to be back this week, but they're still down Rashawn Slater. I think that this is a chance for the Vikings to still try to sneak a win away on Thursday Night Football, which is not an easy thing to do wherever you are, but especially when you're going from the East to the West Coast. But if you're the Vikings, a lot is invested in making sure that you raise JJ McCarthy the right way to make him the franchise quarterback. And sometimes it is about making sure that they can have that fresh start so they can come in hot. I don't see JJ McCarthy as a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson type of player, but I do think he could be like a Jared Goff-like quarterback. But the thing is that you want to give a Jared Goff in his younger years a nice landing strip to hit the ground running. So that's what I think that they're trying to do with this. They're trying to give him not a short week against a really talented defense and a coach that, like you said, knows him very well, raised him through college. So I think if you're the Vikings, you take that, you look at this upcoming week and you say, okay, we're going to have a long week. Then we play a big Vikings game on the road in Detroit. That's the game that you want to get him ready for and have that be the week that he returns.
No doubt about it. And on the other side of the ball, I'm going to love to see what Justin Herbert does against Brian Flores. The Vikings are one of the one teams that I do watch, other than the team that I cover in the Jaguars, where I actually watch the defensive calls, because Flores loves to play these games and mix it up. And it's another chance for Justin Herbert to prove to his naysayers that he is as good as everyone thinks. And he's going to have his weapon back. That's right, his weapon. His left tackle, Joe Alt, returns, and it couldn't come at a better time because their line is so banged up. Here's the crew from Locked On Chargers to tell you all about that.
Joe Alt is a true difference maker, not only in pass protection, but also as a run blocker as well, with his unique length and his just tremendous size and strength. He is a weapon, and the Chargers need weapons on that offensive line. They don't have many of them. He is the tip of the spear for the Chargers offensive line. So to get him back, it is huge.
Yeah, and I think just for, the peace of mind for Justin Herbert, to just know, hey, I'm not just going to get destroyed on my blind side, right? Or that happens. So much less has to help him mentally.
Joe Alt is an offensive weapon, and not too many teams can lose one of the best left tackles in the league and plug it in with one of the best left tackles in the league who plays right tackle.
Yeah, I think, but they need this to start coming out, turning into wins, because they started off on fire 3-0 with a 27-21 win against the Chiefs, and everyone was thinking, oh man, this is the Chargers' year. But then they had a bad loss to the Giants, and then they got destroyed by the Commanders. And then their one win in the last month has been the Dolphins by 2 points. And you see how bad the Dolphins are. That's not a good look for this Chargers team. And last week they got destroyed by the Colts, and now you got to turn it around and win on a short week. Granted, you're staying at home. This is kind of like you brought up must wins earlier in the NFC. I think this might be a must win for the Chargers, because if they lose this game, they fall to 4-4, and that's not a good place to be. They'll fall out of the playoff race. Probably the Chiefs will probably overtake them, and you want the Chiefs to be chasing you. You don't want you want to be chasing the Chiefs. And so and the Dolphins, the Broncos, are 5-2 right now. This is a year where the Chargers, I felt like this could be the year to finally say we are passing you up, Kansas City. You're falling off. Patrick Mahomes can't stay on top forever. This is our chance. Well, they've been blowing their chance with losses to the Commanders, Giants, and the Colts are a good team right now. So at least you can say like that, but you didn't think you'd lose by 2 touchdowns to the Colts. So you got to beat the Vikings tonight. You got a gimme win against the Titans, and then another big matchup. We keep talking about these 5-star matchups because it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's always a 5-star matchup. But you got to get through these next 3 games at least 2-1. If you don't get through those next 3 games 2-1, and you're 1-2 or terribly 0-3, everyone's gonna be looking around at Jim Harbaugh like, what's going on, man? He's like, who's got it better than us? Everybody. Like, so They better get it going because again, like we talked about gauntlets earlier. Wait till they get after their bye week. They get to tune up with the Raiders, but then they get the Eagles, then they get the Chiefs, then they get those highfalutin Cowboys that are going to be trying to drop 40 on your heads. Then you get a Texas team that's probably going to be hungry for the playoffs. Then you get you're at the Broncos with their defense at the end of the year. Get your wins now, Los Angeles. Better get it in gear.
You better get it in gear because every time a team like that loses, there's the Ravens and the Bengals, and the Jaguars, and all of those teams that are either 4-3 right now or with a worse record, but they're starting to get healthy. They're doing the Birdman hand rub together saying, yeah, keep losing, because now all of these teams have a chance and a shot to get back into the game. You can stay in the game with us here on Locked On NFL twice a day. Tyler Rowland wakes you up like a double shot of espresso early in the morning, and then I'll slide through just like now in the barbershop, and we'll take you around the league with the help of local experts that have their pulse on the team that they cover and welcome you in so you understand what's going on too. Chris Carter, I know you got a busy day. Go get at him, and we'll do the same thing here. Make sure you check him out on Locked On Steelers, and we'll see you next time. We don't take you for granted. 31 minutes. That's what you spent with us today, and we absolutely appreciate it. Shout out to the everydayers. We'll see you next time on Locked On NFL.